What's up, people? Happy Sunday to you all. I'm here with my buddy Josh Smith.
What's happening?
Josh has the most amazing scene in his studio set up here. You guys are going to be blown away by this scene that he's got going. I'm sorry, I'm just so knocked out because he just showed me what he's about to show you guys, but this is so cool. Okay, when we first met, you were just building that studio.
I was just building the studio, yeah, and we did the you and Tim show, and I had nothing in here barely, and yeah, now it's like a real working studio. It's kind of amazing, actually.
I mean, there was still construction going on. I seem to remember you hadn't put up in any treatment yet and stuff. You were still doing the treatment in the room.
Right. I was still treating the room. I didn't have any gear in here, so I mean, this was a long process, man. 3 years really from start to finish. But I mean, now, every record I've done in the last, 4 years have been done here. I've produced, probably 10 other records out of here.
Amazing.
It's a real working. It's a dream come true, honestly. Like I can almost pull off anything here other than like, big orchestra date, but anything else I can pull it off.
And you blow me away with just seeing what you've put together there and stuff, and just what you've just told us that you've done so many albums there and stuff. Just your work ethic is like off the chart. It blows me away. So, man,
I'm trying to keep myself busy, and the producing thing is a new thing for me over the last 4 or 5 years, but if you would ask me as a kid guitar player, was I ever going to want to learn how to run Pro Tools or, be able to mic a drum kit, produce a record, write horn arrangements or what? Hell no. I would have had absolutely no interest in any of that. But, life forces you to make changes and figure out ways to make a living. And I'm kind of glad I ended up where I am because I really enjoy it. It's just another way of being creative. And I mean, other than playing gigs, being in the studio is the second best thing I could do. So it's like, now it's taken over, I guess.
What a great thing that you put together the studio. I mean, so that you're ready for this time, right? Well, so that you can hole up there and do some work and stuff, right?
Yeah, the first month was tough. Like most of us, I probably just, ate too much and watched TV for a month, and I couldn't get motivated. And I'm still not writing, which is weird. I can't seem to find that motivation, the writing motivation. But I did knock out like a lot of the things I needed to knock out, like guitar sessions for people that I'd put off, like guest spots, all sorts of little things like that. And then I opened back up for more guitar sessions, which I don't do quite as much when I'm on the road and when I'm producing. I don't have as much time just to play guitar on people's stuff. So I did a lot of that at the beginning of the pandemic. And then I had records I was in the middle of producing that I could like get into the end process on, like mixing and things like that. So like Andy Timmons was here in January and I produced his new album. So now we're into mixing that. We've been mixing it the whole pandemic and stuff like that. So yeah, it's great to have it back here. And dude, it's just such a relief to be able to come back here, not even just to work, just to sit down. If somebody sends me a pedal or an amp or something, I can immediately go into my little room and play it as loud as I want and do whatever. It could be at 2 a.m. It doesn't matter. And that's just such a great feeling. I didn't know how important that feeling would be, that opportunity to have that, but it's one of the best things about having the studio.
Yeah, you could just play as you want to play without at the time you want to play. If it's 3 a.m, doesn't matter. And you can turn up as loud as you want. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And I realize I'm incredibly fortunate to have done this, and without the support of my wife and the financial support of, her being the breadwinner for so many years before I started to make even a decent living, we wouldn't have ended up in the place we're at now.
Well, I mean, it's great, man. You set yourself up for a good situation, and it's show us the camera thing you just showed me, because Josh is getting a YouTube channel together, and part of that is the studio and stuff, and show me what you just showed me as far as getting that all.
Okay, so basically I'd always thought, I'll put cameras around the studio eventually so that when I'm producing I can offer as an extra, bonus feature or whatever, an extra expense almost to artists. Hey, I can record the whole session. I'll have cameras all around and you can take the footage and do what you want. But when the pandemic hit, it was like, of course, the first thought is, well, I need to stream concerts from here. So I, invested a little bit in cameras and a little rig, and now it's kind of pivoted towards the YouTube channel. But yeah, so here, I'll show you.
Okay.
That's the wide view here in the control room. So I thought, oh, I'd have one over the couch. That way, if it's like someone I'm producing, they can have not just the live room and all that. They can have, us in here talking about takes and things like that for like documentary type purposes.
Sure.
So this is the control room. That's the live room. So you can see the drums. You can see the B3 over there. I don't know how much of it is showing, but yeah, that's the live room.
Right on.
This is also the live room, but from above the drums. So there you could see the full scope of the live room, kind of.
So cool. So cool. So cool.
There's the organ. Oh, it's blurry. Shoot, that camera. I got to focus that camera.
always something, right? That's so great, man.
So I got and I have some mobile ones. I ran some extra lines so I can put ones on tripods and put them close. If there's, if I'm sitting out there, I could put one right up on me if we're doing a live concert or something like that. Yeah, it was a lot of work, but now they're like out of the way and they're on the walls and it's like, there's not cable everywhere. So it's like, I felt like, okay, I did it the right way.
Dude, it's amazing. I mean, you got it together. I was saying right when Josh showed up here in the StreamYard studio, so I could see him and stuff. I'm like, look at you and look at me. I'm like, look at the quality of your video. You look great, and I look like I'm washed out and like a ghost.
Dude, it's just all I got is one light. I got one light and my camera. That's it. Nothing special.
Well, it's really cool. You put it all together. And so tell us a little bit, because I've got the link for your YouTube channel down in the video description for this video below. So everybody's got to go sign up for Josh's channel, because he's going to be doing lots of cool stuff. And tell us a little bit about it, like what you want to do on YouTube.
Yeah, so I guess like a lot of guys, not like you, I criminally, overlooked YouTube for years. In fact, until 2 months ago, I hadn't posted a video in about 6 years on my YouTube channel. And
you were busy.
I was busy.
I was on the road. And
I was working. I was playing, and when social media became such a big thing, I just didn't even really think about it. I was on Instagram, I was on, Facebook, and it wasn't something I was really thinking about, because in my mind, it was like, well, there's already video of every gig I play on YouTube the second the gig's over. Like, what do I need to put on YouTube? But, the pandemic, again, it opened up. Number one, it showed me in reality how much of my income actually comes from gigging, which is much less than I realized, surprisingly. Because touring is a labor of love, and sometimes that's a break-even proposition and not a money-making proposition. So, while it's still the thing I want to do the most, I realized, geez, maybe this isn't where my income comes from. And then, quite honestly, I looked at your channel, and I look, my friends. I looked at you. I looked at Rick Beato, and Rick and I have become friends. And I called him and I said, dude, can you just like give me like a small rundown on what you would do if you were me on YouTube? 4 hours in that conversation later, it was like my mind just exploded, on what's possible. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to put in a little effort. And then literally I made the first video, my first new video. And then I got this email from YouTube saying, hey, we're launching this membership thing. And I was like, whoa, this is like fate. It's kismet. Because I was thinking about Patreon. I was thinking about this. Rick has his own subscription club. I was thinking, okay, what can I do? And then it was like, you know what? I should just go all in on YouTube. So I created I called it Guitar Zan's Flat 5 Lounge, because everybody calls me Guitar Zan, and my studio is called Flat 5. And basically, I'm just been posting a couple videos a week, like a lesson, or not a lesson, but more. I'm thinking of the channel like a direct like video blog to me, like a giant Instagram almost. So it's not all lessons. It's kind of whatever I want to talk about. It may be, shit, I was in the car and I just heard Earth, Wind, and Fire. So let's talk about all the great guitar on Earth, Wind, and Fire and why that stuff's so good. Or it could be, hey, this is how I mic amps or mic drums. Or it could be, a guitar lesson, or it could be whatever, just whatever I'm thinking. So my goal has been one video like that a week, one like dirtier video a week. I do it in black and white on purpose and don't, labor over the editing and all that. And then maybe a live stream. So when the member thing came up, I thought, you know what, I can take that same formula and make like extended versions for the members. So that's what I've done. I've launched 3 tiers of membership.
Wow.
And basically, as a member, you get access to members only live streams. You get members only videos. So, like, I asked you to be on the interview part, like we're doing now. So, I've already done a few. I launched the first one yesterday with Blue Saraceno. So,
great.
there's a whole hour interview of us talking and playing. But then there's a separate video for members that's a lesson between the two of us. Like,
Amazing.
and only the members can see that. And then in the top tier, I even created a Discord forum where only the top tier gets access to this forum, and it's just like the gear page or whatever, but just for me and my fans, where they can ask me questions and we can converse, and it's actually really awesome. There's almost 100 people in it in 5 days, and
wow.
Everybody's sharing member videos and pics and asking gear questions. They're all talking to themselves. I don't have to be in there answering every question every second. It's really cool, and so I'm kind of inspired by it, and I've decided, like, at least the rest of this year, it's all my attention is going towards this.
I think that's brilliant, dude, especially since you made the discovery about touring and how it's a break-even proposition many times. And I think you're going to find it's a whole nother thing that you're like, whoa, this world is just to get it. I mean, the fact that I love that you said you spoke to Rick and he gave you all these ideas, because that's how it works with YouTube and anybody else out there watching. I learned so much from going to GitCon and going to the Tolman event and the different YouTube things and talking to different people, what they're doing on YouTube and how they're approaching it. See, I love that you're doing it. I mean, this every week I've done, I think this is 136 of these.
Wow.
So it's been, well over 2 years now that I've been doing this, and just the folks that come here every week, that come every Sunday, it's like a little community for sure. And it's like, it's really cool and special and fun. And it's a whole nother thing. Like you said, I never would have thought, when I was a kid that, I thought it was just about playing guitar and stuff, but it's really fun doing other stuff related to music and guitar and fostering that, seeing where it goes. So.
Well, yeah, because I'd be talking about this stuff all day long anyways. So I might as well be talking about it with friends and,
yeah.
And quite honestly, my wife had been on me for a while, not on me, but encouraging me to be more proactive in this way, because I'm the guy so I know it's just probably the same for you. My Instagram direct messages and Facebook direct messages are, sometimes, 50 a day, sometimes 100.
Yeah.
And I'm the guy who has to respond to everybody. And because I don't want to be that one time when someone doesn't get a response who asks me about my strings or what about this chord, what would you play? And then they go, Josh is a dick. He didn't respond to that message. But it's gotten so far, so many messages that I can't keep up.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is a way where if people really want to ask me questions, I have devoted a part of my life to it, and she was right. Like, this was the right way to do it.
That's great, man. They know where to find you, and it's absolutely true. I mean, time is money, and it's difficult to keep up with everything you need to do when you need to pay your mortgage and pay for your studio and everything. So it's like, you can't answer every single question, but you've got a members only YouTube thing. And if people want to join your club, they can do it. And then they get a kind of access to you that, it's really great. I mean, and you've got a great personality for it. I mean, from the first time I met you, you're really smart and you can talk about music and guitar at length and you're good at it. Some people are more reserved, and they don't have the right personality maybe for the interaction,
I'm a nerd like all of us. And it still excites me as much now as it did when I was 11 and I got, I'd wait for Guitar Player every month and Guitar for the Practicing. And I'd read every page of the magazine and I'd, same with the gear. It's like, dude, when I first heard boutique pedals were a thing, it was like Eric Johnson mentioned the Prescription Electronics Experience pedal in an interview. And it was the first time I'd heard of a pedal that wasn't, Ibanez, Fender, Dunlop, Boss, whatever.
Sure.
And there was an ad in the back of Guitar Player, and I sent away by mail to buy the Prescription Electronics Experience pedal. That was my first
that was one of my first too. I got it as a gift actually, and it's still one of the best fuzzes that I have. Yeah.
Yep.
That's so cool, man. We got a question. I guess we should start interacting a bit with some of the folks here in the but there's a question, super chat from Modern Vintage, and he says, I just saw your 2Rock video.
Okay.
And he says, he's asking, are you still using the new TS1? Is it stock or modded?
Okay. Yeah, I use the TS1 a lot. So if anybody's seen me play in the last 10 years, you've either seen the Morgans most of the time or the 2-Rock. I've had the 2-Rock a shorter time, and it gets used for specific things. It's a TS1, but it's not a stock one. It's one they made just for me based on a Dumble that I played that really made an impression. And when they asked me about an amp, that I want an amp, I said, yeah, can you make me this specific Dumble, which is kind of like Lowell George's Dumble amp. It's an overdrive special with reverb and no master volume. So my TS1 is 100 watts, but with no master. It's really loud, and it has reverb. It's a great amp.
That's cool, man. He's also asking fave delays and reverbs to use with it. Do you run them in front? I would add to that.
Most of the time I run them in front, and it has reverb built in. So, but sometimes when I'm using the overdrive channel in the 2-Rock, I'll put a 2290 style delay in the loop. So I have the Free the Tone Flight Time one I like for that sound. I also use the H9 frequently with that amp. I use the H9 all the time. I mean, it's, the most important pedal I own probably besides the Chula, but yeah. Yeah, if I put something in the loop of the 2-Rock, it'll be a 2290 style delay.
When you use an H9, do you use the Vintage Digital? Is that what you would use, like the algorithm for reverb?
Yeah. There's a Duct Digital one in there that's like the most 2290 one to me.
So you do the Duct delay thing?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I always wanted to use that, and then I try and use it, and I'm like, I just want the delay to be the same all the time. I never set that. When you set that, how far down do you duck the delay?
About halfway down, but I'm using it like the way Robin Ford used it. So it's just one sound for me. It's like it's kind of like a slap with repeats, but with way low mix. So it almost sounds like a reverb. If that makes sense.
So there's
actually. Okay. I can play it for you. Let me turn it on.
Brilliant.
Here it is. So it's kind of like you hear just like a reverb, kind of like a hall or a room.
And the reverb gone on the amp.
There's reverb on the amp too, but the delay sounds like Sorry, it's in the other room. I can't turn the reverb off, but here's without it, and here's with it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, a little slap. That's cool.
Well, yeah. Well, when you combine that with overdrive or something, it's kind of the it's kind of Robin thing.
Awesome. You sound great as always. So good. That's that crazy guitar that your main guitar is still, right?
Yeah. This has been my main guitar for 15 years now. Made by Bill Chapin. Telly style guitar. Only for a couple more months. I can't say why, but I got a signature guitar coming out in January, and
wow.
I'm super excited about it. But then I can't say anything else. So that's it.
That's awesome, man. That's great to hear.
Yeah,
really exciting. So it'll be out at NAMM time. This will be what we gotta talk about. Well, okay, we can't talk too much about your guitar because we can't. I wish I could. I have two of them. I wish I could go grab it and show it to you. And I'm super proud of it. But wow. Yeah, it's going to be a surprise. That's awesome. And NAMM going to be weird this year because I always give you credit because you turned me around about NAMM. Not that I didn't enjoy NAMM because I do. I felt the way you did, but you were so honest about your feelings about it. You know how you talk to people in LA and they say, "Oh, NAMM, are you going to go to?" Right. It's cool to like diss NAMM or something, and you were like, man, all my friends are there. It's loaded with guitars and amps. I like guitars and amps. I like to hang out with my friends. I go all 4 days. I love it. Yep. I remember you said that. Dude, ever since I was a little kid, I was lucky
when I was 13 to come to NAMM for the first time.
Yeah.
It was my bar mitzvah gift from my uncle who lives here and is a musician. So he flew me from Florida here, and he knew I would love it, and he took me to NAMM, and it was just mind blowing. Like, wait a minute, I can go to any company and pick up any guitar, and then I bumped into Stevie Wonder. Well, we all bump into him every year, but then you bump into Steve Morse. I bumped into, and Brian Setzer and Steve Vai, and it was like, wait a minute, this is the greatest thing ever. And I still feel that way every year. It's like I see people I don't see but at NAMM every year. I see new gear. I love gear. And it's like it's fun. Yeah, your feet hurt and maybe you get sick, but man, it's still so much fun to me. And honestly, it's bumming me out that in the year that I'm going to release this guitar and it's a big deal with a big company that is not going to get to be there and be at the booth and talking about this. It's all going to be virtual.
I know, man. That's got to be tough. I know. I feel you there. And I didn't go last year because I had a tour, and I was bummed about that. And my main release, Mike Buckman was just up there in the super chat, and the chat disappeared, but he didn't ask a question anyway.
Nice.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. What was I going to say? So we brought out the PT15 with no IRs in it. So I did have a product like an amp come out, my little 112 cab for it and stuff, and I wasn't able to be there, and it really bummed me out. So actually, I told the folks that because I'm going to do more with them. I think that I was touring with. They always like to tour in January, February. I said, I want to do it. I love to do it. I got to be able to go to the show. Like, that's my thing. And they said, great. We'll work around it. I was like, I'm blown away by that, but I'll be there next time when there's people because I have fun too. I feel the same way you do. I'll tell you a quick story about the first NAMM show I ever went to. Was I think it was 89, or maybe it was NAMM 90. NAMM 1990 was the very, very first one, and I didn't live in LA yet. I hadn't moved yet. I was going to move later in the fall, the September of that year, to go to MI. And so January 1990, I go down to the NAMM show, and we got to LA, and we went right off the plane to some, still living in Canada or whatever. I went with a music store that I worked for in Canada, and get off the plane. We went to a hockey game at the Forum.
Nice.
And I thought, this is fun. We went and saw Kings play or whatever. And I ate a hot dog that night. I remember that. I got food poisoning. And the next morning, I'm getting ready to go to the show. It's an NAMM show. I'm like so stoked. My first time, and it was all the people, and I'm walking there and stuff. And I started feeling sick. Dude, I got in the Hilton, and I went in the back hallway of behind it was like the bar or restaurant or whatever. And I ran into a back hallway and found a garbage can and threw it up. And I thought, I got food poisoning, and I hobbled back to my hotel and got in bed, and I wasn't able to go to the show, all that. But luckily, it was only a 24-hour thing. But can you imagine how bummed I was? I got all the way down.
Especially your first one. Yeah.
I couldn't even go in. I was just like, I felt like I was going to die. And then 24 hours later, I was like pretty much 95% better, and I went to the show the next 3 days.
And the hot dogs are still terrible at the Forum. No, well, not the Forum, but Staples now. Was that Wayne Gretzky time, Kings, I would think?
Yeah, actually. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, he'd been traded in 89.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely true. Yeah, that's right. And so the last year, I actually saw 88 or 89 was the trade. And then they won the cup in 90, I think, for the last.
I think so, 90, yeah.
So when he wasn't there anymore, he wasn't in Edmonton anymore. And I went to that game actually where they won. Though I was at that Stanley Cup game, and it was unbelievable because Wayne had left, and they still were able to win the cup, and that was the last time. But it was hockey. Leon Barron's up there. He's somewhere in Europe, and he's also in the super duper chat. Thanks, man. Thanks, Leon. He says, want to say thanks to Josh for the lesson he did on That Pedal Show. Blew my mind. Any other tips for playing jazz for the regular blues guy? That's a great question.
Yeah. Man, so for me, it's all about playing through the changes, and that means creating connections between chords. I try to get myself to a place of autopilot on any chord. So we've played guitar for a long time. We should know at least one thing that works on any chord that we land on, whether it's an arpeggio or a scale or just the blues. We should know one thing that works on any chord that comes our way, or be able to spell that chord out, whatever. To me, the main question then, if I think that way and let just that stuff happen, the main thing I can think about is how do I get from one chord to the next? And for me, it's three things. It's diminished chords, it's 2-5-1 turnarounds, and it's chromaticism. And chromaticism was first, of course. So it was like I would take, going from A to D and chromatically get there by going first as simple as that, but then by doing things like by going. So that's me playing. And then, I'd go back. So I'd play. Now, everything in there was completely chromatic. I went. So that's one way that I'll connect dots. So that frees me up to make connections.
When you say that you did that, you're saying that you did it so as you're doing those sort of chromatic chord movements, you're spelling it out playing single note lines is what you're saying, right?
Exactly. It all came directly from listening to Freddie Green play rhythm guitar with Count Basie and realizing all those chords, like one chord per beat in a bar of, a blues like that. That type of rhythm guitar, that jazz rhythm guitar, that I could do that in my solos, that I could play those. And play those chromatic moves to connect those chords the same way he was doing. And literally all of my stuff came from listening to him play rhythm guitar, because then he'd get to the 4 chord and he'd play something like this. And that was like, that's a 2-5-1. In fact, I really heard him do it for the first time. Going to the 4, he went. So he played E minor and A to voice lead into D. And it was like, well, wait a minute, I can do that in my solo. And I can do it going back by playing B minor. So literally I went, and then I went, and I'm creating another bridge between chords. And then, on the 4 chord, I heard him do this. And it was like, wait a minute, that's a diminished chord. I've heard that sound in Ray Charles songs. And it became clear to me that you could take this diminished chord and play it a half step below any chord in all music. And that was the biggest eye opener, because it was like, I can go back and forth between all the chords. So I can take A and then play E flat diminished to lead me to D, and then play A flat diminished to lead me back to A. But
that's
then
great.
those chords move in minor thirds. So it's like if I'm playing blues here. And it was like they were anywhere. I could be playing B.B. King and want to get to the 4, and I had this diminished. And it was like once I had those 3 ways to connect dots, I felt like it didn't matter what was happening. I could make something work because I knew something to play on a chord when I landed there. And these gave me ways to connect the dots. So hopefully that helped.
Oh, brilliant, man. Now, okay. So 2 questions. Number 1, the concept that you just discussed, I'm sure you have a lesson either on TrueFire or somewhere else where you explain that, right?
I have one on TrueFire, absolutely. And I'm doing a video all about this for my YouTube, because I realized the video he's talking about on Pedal Show, and there's another video on Guitar Magazine in the UK where I do this little spiel kind of, but shorter, and it has like 8 million views. It's like, yeah, I need to put that video on my YouTube.
Yeah. So you'll have one on your YouTube where you explain that concept.
Yeah, I'm working on it right now, actually. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I bet there's folks out there that are thinking, but wait a minute. So I can play that, like do the diminished approach, say to the 4 chord or back to the 1, even if the rhythm guitar is not doing it, even if somebody's just chunking on, 1-4-5, right? You can do it.
That's the great thing about the diminished approach is it's blanket statement across all music. So the best way to practice it is take your favorite song, any song. You can be knocking on heaven's door. So you can be like, right, and play. put a diminished chord between every chord till you start hearing that sound. Because again, it doesn't matter if the chord following it is minor or major. It doesn't matter. You can put this chord a half step below, and then you can also move that in minor thirds anywhere. So you don't have to always think about it as, oh, I need a G flat diminished to get me to G. No, it could be an A diminished, so you could be playing here. It doesn't matter. So that's the way to think about it.
Amazing, man. Love it. That's some genius stuff you just bestowed upon us.
Man, it's funny. I think of myself as like a problem solver more than like, I'm not a jazz guitar player, not at all. Like, I could get up on stage, sure. And if you call giant steps, I would make my way through it, but that's not who I am. But what I am is trying to like kind of express what I'm hearing inside. And so I try to find the tools that help me do that. And so these were the tools that helped me kind of get the things I was hearing in my head out. Because I when I hear that stuff, that's what I hear. I hear Charlie Parker bebop stuff. And that's what he's doing and all that stuff. He's extending all those chords, but he's also connecting the dots on all those chords, And dude, that's the difference between a jazz guy and a rock guy. Like a rock guy plays over the changes brilliantly. Every chord, they know a million things to play. They play melodically as hell, but they don't do maybe some of these little things that connect the chords. Not that it's wrong or right, but it's different, and it's a different. So that's to me through the changes versus over the changes.
Eddie was up there in the top chat, and I missed it. I didn't know. I wanted to say thank you, sir. Yeah, connecting the chords allows you to do some interesting things that a lot of rock players, and I'm totally guilty of this, landing on the one and constantly like not playing over the bar line. Melodic idea. I mean, that's a rock thing, and I've tried and get out of that. So I'm going to try and apply some of the stuff that you're telling us here, because it'll help me. I mean, just to be able to move over the bar line and keep a melodic idea going without sounding so literal all the time. I fall into that pattern,
Dude, that going over the bar line is so crucial. I mean, and obviously, so that comes from listening to so much blues and jazz music where these guys play long phrases that connect. But
right.
Man, when you play over that bar line, the way I learned to do that stuff is, yes, by listening to Charlie Parker and listening to these guys play long phrases, but a lot of it came from rhythm guitar too. Like funk rhythm guitar players would play stuff and it would give me rhythmic ideas in my solo. Like they play right, and then they'd start going over the bar line. So they go they'd never lose it, but I'd hear that and it'd be like, man, I can feel that in my head already. So let me start doing that stuff. Until I could start to break up the beat that way. And a lot of that for me came from listening to rhythm guitar players.
All that pulse in your solos is amazing. Like, because I never lose it when I'm hearing you play. I'm just like, yeah, it's groovy. You're playing a solo, but it's groovy. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Like, how do you think about? I've been thinking about this a lot because I've been thinking about things to teach and things for the channel, and I realized like one of the most important things for me is tying together like the time that I'm hearing in here and the pulse that I have inside me with these, because I hear shit even now that I can't do yet. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And how do you strengthen that connection between, the internal groove and like your hands? I mean, do you think about that ever?
Dude, I mean, it's all like the ideas in my head and then trying to get them out is that's the barrier where it's like, I know what I want to do. And now I just have to like get myself physically to be able to, for sure. That's the magic. I mean, when I see somebody like Landau, that's the, where it's just this flow of, it's like a direct connection from his brain to your ears of ideas, and it's unbelievable because the communication is. It's like the guitar and the amp are just the tools, and in a way, they're kind of in the way of like his idea coming to you, you know, and then he's figured out a way to make that stuff as invisible as possible.
Dude, and it's I that's something I obsess about. Like, how do I make the connection between here and here faster and
Yeah.
more seamless? Because we're always hearing stuff that we can't pull off yet. You know what I mean? And it's like
Sure.
you got to eliminate those barriers. In fact, I saw a video recently on that guy Scott's Bass Lessons website, and Scott's a great guy, and I did some stuff with him when I was in London. But he did a master class with Gary Willis, the bass player from Tribal Tech. And Gary said, if you hear a better solo and if there's a better solo going on in your head than you can actually play, you got a problem, man. We need to get this solo out. You know, you already can do it. You've got it. It's happening here, and you got to get it out. And I try to work on those type of things. Yeah,
amazing. Well, there's a few folks with questions here that were up in the top chat. I'm going to get to them here. Sometimes I'll use my phone to screenshot them because I know they're going to disappear, which they did. But Bobby Valdez, he says, great to see you guys. What is the Vox-inspired Morgan amp that you use with your JS12?
The Vox-inspired Morgan, it's a AC40. So it's like an AC30, two EL34s, 84s. And so I'm a big fan of, if you've seen me in the last 10 years, it's normally been Vox style amp and a Fender style amp together. Now, if I'm one amp, it's going to be the Fender, but I like to have Fender and Vox together. Something special happens there for me at least, with the combination of mid ranges that happen between those two amps.
One fills in the hole where the other one isn't, right?
Yeah, and they react to, when I turn a pedal on, they react differently, and it makes things bloom and just get bigger. It's not always about volume; it's more about like spectrum of tone, I guess.
With the Vox, do you find that you ever have trouble with it responding well to pedals because I've generally find like Fender style amps are a little more friendly, not always, but depends on the bright cap. But with Voxes, I sometimes find a top boost style Vox be like real tough with pedals.
Yeah, vintage Voxes can be very tough with pedals. The Morgan is much better with them. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Only certain pedals work good with Voxes, like vintage ones, like fuzzes and vintage Voxes, not very friendly. But treble boosters, wow, magic. You know what I mean?
Totally.
There's a pedal. This sounds silly, but there's this pedal that if I'm playing a Vox by itself, I will almost always grab this pedal in the studio. It's called a Hot Cake by. And it just works with a Vox. I don't know what the hell they did, but it works with a Vox.
That's a great pedal. It's been around a long time, that one.
It really is. Talk about early boutique pedals. That's another very early one.
Yeah, definitely the Hot Cake, like 90s, I think,
Yeah.
Leon Barron was up there in the super top chat. He said, blew my mind again. Thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
Yeah, me too, man. I feel the same way. It was knocking me out. Loot 89 is up there, and he says, Josh, is theory at all avoidable? Just kind of kidding, but not really. Is it avoidable? I guess it's avoidable.
Of course it's avoidable, but man, to me, it boils down to, do you feel like you're being held back? Is there stuff that you want to play, you can't do it? Well, if that's the case, then it's your own fault, man. And, you either decide to put in the work or you don't. I would never tell somebody who's content and happy and likes what they're doing, dude, you're slacking. You need to work harder. You're missing this and you're missing that. I'd never say that to anyone. But if you truly feel like, man, I can't get down these things I've got in my head and I wish I could, well, then it's on you. It's only on you. There's no, replacement for the amount of time you put into something. So, I mean, you have to put in the time. Now, do I read every day? Oh, absolutely not. Like I can count on one hand the time I've read real single note, notation in the last year. But I have to write it sometimes. I certainly have to read chord charts. I have to know time. I have to know those things. But more importantly, I have to know music to do my job. If I'm in the studio. So it's like last week I was in Nashville for 12 days. I'm producing Eric Gale's new record along with Joe Bonamassa. And so Nashville, they do things slightly different here. It's all number system, which is the way I work anyways, but they write numbers differently. So like for a song that's in a minor key, they'll write it in relative major for numbers. And that's something I never do. But it's easy for me to do it because I know the stuff, but it was still like a mind fuck, excuse my language, because I don't think about that stuff. But if I hadn't done the work to at least be comfortable in that world and know, the number system and intervals and the circle of fifths, I would have been lost out there when they're telling me, when they're telling me play, a 6 minor, right?
Right.
But the key is, to me, that's the one. But they're telling me play 6 minor because they're thinking the song in G, even though there's never a G chord in the song. It's in E minor. It's in E minor, but the first chord in the song, they'll write 6 minor on the chart. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, that takes some thought for a second. Because to me, I would just think, well, the song's in E, but
they always relate to the major scale. That would actually be easier for me because I'm, that's interesting. Huh, wow. Yep. Just because of the fact that I always think relating back to a 1 chord.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
But for me, coming from a blues background,
right,
a minor blues or a minor tune that doesn't resolve, that is the one. That's E minor, that E minor there, that's the one.
It feels like home. It's home. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it's but I have to know that because I have foundational skills, that's not a problem, even though it's still sometimes a little bit of, a trick.
Sure. How was, by the way, the whole experience? Because we spoke just before you were going to go, and so 12 days in the studio in Nashville and working with Joe and stuff. Tell us a little bit about it.
It was really great. Eric brought it big time. Joe and myself worked extremely hard on this record because we love Eric so much.
Yeah.
We've been fans of Eric since we were both kids. He's older than us, and he was out there, and he was an inspiration. And, everybody knows Eric's story and the things, his ups and downs, but his brilliance is undeniable. He's so special as a player and as a person. But we both selfishly had this record we wanted to make that we felt he'd never made, and so we told him, dude, we're going to push hard. We're going to write a lot of songs. We're going to push you on the vocals like you've never been pushed. We're going to, this is going to be a difficult record. And I think he worked harder on this record probably than he ever has.
Yeah.
And honestly, Joe and I worked harder on it than we work on our own records in the last few years because we were so invested. It was all hands on deck to try to make, what we hope would be the best record of Eric's career to this point. And I think we succeeded. I think people are not just going to love it. I think people are going to freak out when they hear it because it's special. Like I listened to it in the car last night and it was like, wow, we kind of did it. Like, I feel like we succeeded. And so I'm excited.
In 12 days, which for a lot of for a pop rock record or something like that, that's like nothing. But in the blues world, sometimes I'll see, when Joe's going in to record a record, and he'll go in and do it in like 4 days, and it's like all done, and it's like, wow. Like, and that's just because it's more that live off the floor, get live takes, get that feel, right? It's not such a piece together thing.
Yeah, well, because you're going for a balance between, yes, we want things to sound expensive, and produced, but you also, this is emotional music and emotional playing, so you don't want to neuter that. You want to let moments happen on the fly because that's the best stuff. He's improvising. That's what he does, and you feel every note. So you're striking a balance between that. But dude, I will say, and he said this was the first time in his career. We did 13 songs. 11 of them were solos live with the band that went down on the Go Down.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. That's great. Like oh man, I can't wait to hear it.
And that's part of my philosophy anyways. I pushed for that. It was like, dude, play. He was like, well, I'm going to do my solos after. And Joe and I were both like, well, just play to give the band some reaction stuff, knowing full well that we were going to get keeper solos once he got in the mode, because we were building him a bed. It's like I played rhythm guitar on every song, and he had Reese on organ. He had a great rhythm section. It was like he had a great band. He could just be free and just play And so, by the second take, it was like, no, we're getting Keeper solo on this song.
That's great. And that's part of production. I mean, like knowing, like even if you had to go a little bit roundabout to get him around to that, you're like, we know how to get the best out of it. That's great.
Yeah.
Bill was up there in the super chat. He says, as always, Pete, fantastic chat. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. He says, great to see Josh. So, and I agree.
Well, thank you. Great to be seen.
It's so much fun having you here. A couple more that were up there. Live to Play Guitar. Thank you, man. He was up there in the top chat as well. And I believe I missed one. Loot 89 says, on that note, are you watching Joe's show later? Isn't Joe doing a live stream from the Ryman or something?
He's doing a live stream today from the Ryman at, I think now. I think it's like right now.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Somebody said
maybe
later.
It's 1 o'clock our time. So no, 1 o'clock our time.
Oh, wow. Well, I should make sure I end by 1 so that folks can go check that out in case they want to, I didn't realize it was so early. Andrew Morgan was also up there in the top chat. He said, ruling Sunday chat. I would like to say the one positive for me is the amount of music I have seen in my lounge room. Larkin Poe, Joe Bonamassa, Kingfish this weekend alone. Vibes for you both. Thank you, man. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I mean, I've done more watching and listening in the last few months just because that's all we've got to do, right? But it's great. I mean,
it's weird, man. My initial thought when I did the cameras and all that was, I'm going to start streaming concerts from here all the time. Well, I haven't done it at all, because, there's logistics involved, but then also this feeling of it's just not the same. When I'm playing with my friends here in the studio, it's almost like I want that to be just for us. It's kind of weird. I don't think that's the one thing I think people maybe don't relate to who aren't professional and especially touring musicians, improvisers. It's like, man, 90% of like what makes me identify as the musician I am is kind of gone. So now I'm having to squeeze all my enjoyment out of the other 10%, which is still really fucking fun because I love this stuff, but I what I am is an improviser, and that means on stage and with other musicians in front of an audience. And man, I can count again in the last 6 months, I've played with other musicians 3 times. The Gales Week in the studio, 1 time here with Travis and Lamar, and 1 time at the Baked Potato. That's it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a guy that's used to playing every night, it's got to be tough. I remember we did a live stream thing for the Eventide channel 4 months ago or something, right? And I was feeling for you because you were like, yeah, it's like that's my jam is improvising. That's what I do, and to not be able to do that is hard. Like I'm not digging it. And I was like, wow, because I'm used to doing YouTube and sitting in this room and doing the type of stuff people see me do. That's, I love playing live too, but this has been a big part. But so it's actually great to see that you have embraced it and you are having fun.
But it's weird. Like if I sit here and improvise like we've been doing, if I just play a blues, whatever. If I sat here and played a whole chorus and improvised, yeah, I'm improvising, right? But it's in a vacuum. I'm alone. There's no outside factors influencing this improvisation. Sure. The drummer's not giving me any feedback. The bass player's not looking at me and pushing me along. The audience isn't giving me a cue on, hey, I should get louder here, or I should do this, or I should do that. So it's like it's just not the same. It's like practice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like practice. Exactly. It doesn't feel the same. There's nothing like getting out and playing in front of people. And it's completely different. Always. Every time. No matter how many times you sit and play a song by yourself and go over it, there's nothing like getting in front of people and playing it. You learn things. Oh, this works. That doesn't work. Oh, things that right? I mean, that you never would be able to discover on your own. It's really interesting.
Yep.
Well, let's see who else we got here in the chat. Ben Coombs put up a subscribe to Josh here link, so you guys can check that out. He's putting it up periodically there, so you can go, and down there in the video description, if you missed those, there's a link to Josh's channel, so you can check it out.
Become a ruler. That's what I named my tiers: the beginner rulers, the intermediate rulers, and the effing rulers. So be an effing ruler.
That's great. So, Son of Starlet 12 says, "Hi guys, just wanted to say I root harder for both of you than most because I have met you both and you're genuinely nice humans." Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very nice of you.
I can attest that Josh is definitely a good human being.
As is Pete. I can attest to that as well.
Patrick's up there in the top chat, and he says, "Hey Josh, I've queued. I guess that means questions all of Pete's guests, but could you share your approach to bending and vibrato?" I was going to ask you about this too, because the one thing that some folks out there might not know, many of them probably do, but is that you use 13s, I think, right?
Yeah.
So okay. Yeah. What about bending and vibrato?
So, man, bending and vibrato, obviously in the blues, you can't. I mean, it's part and parcel to playing the blues. A lot of my bending comes from kind of three people. Stevie Ray Vaughan, of course, but Albert King, number one, and then Roy Buchanan was really big on my bending, the way that he played guitar. The strings, of course, were driven by Stevie Ray Vaughan, but then once I got into it, I just loved it. I loved the sound. I loved the feeling. I loved the fight. Vibrato, on the other hand, is incredibly personal, and it's a really hard thing to teach. It's like I did a BB King video the other day for his birthday, and it's like his vibrato is so great, but I can't do it all the time. That he's got a side-to-side shake, and I'm more up and down, you know? So I think my vibrato has ended up in between BB and Albert. So to me, BB is this, and Albert is more drunk. He kind of is aggressive. But my bending, definitely all Albert King. But I mean, you know, I guess I've been lucky. I have big hands, strong hands. So the big strings, it doesn't bother me bending, you know, minor thirds on the big strings.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's mostly ring finger. I don't bend a lot with the pinky. I don't know. I mean, you know, bending is such a personal thing. I find, you know, my friend Kirk Fletcher, he bends way more than I do. Because he, number one, he listened to more Buddy Guy than I listen to. Not that I don't love Buddy Guy, but Buddy Guy bends even more than the guys we're talking about, that I was just talking about. But Kirk, you know, is such an expressive player. And he made a joke one time. We were sitting here just, you know, shooting the bull, and we'd play the same phrase. And sometimes he would bend 3 notes in a 5-note phrase, and I would bend 1 to play the same phrase. And I would slide more or target a note more than him. And I don't know why that is. Like even that BB phrase, a lot of times I'll play instead of, because I just like that sound, but I'll do both in the same phrase. I'll go, I do that a lot, do a bend and then follow it up with a slide to the same root note. And that's just part of, you know, my sound, I think, in the voice that I've tried to cultivate, I guess. But yeah, I think my vibrato is in between those two guys. It's pretty level, I think, actually, when I'm just being myself.
When you do vibrato, I noticed you are taking it's not the thing where you're pivoting, it's more like you are pulling down on the string and up and down, right? A little bit of both, I guess, depending on what you're using.
But I try to be relatively even with it, but not robotic, if that makes sense. But again, this stuff just happens. And that's, you know, it's got to be natural. I mean, I'm not thinking about vibrato ever.
It's a funny thing. I remember trying to teach bending and vibrato. and I remember one time, I don't know why I remember, it's funny when you remember things from like 30 years ago or 40 years ago. I remember one lesson in particular where there was this young guy that I was teaching. I used to, I'd hold down a note on, say, the A on the high E string, and then you bend the 8th fret, the G on the B, and I'd say play that A and then bend this note up to match it on the 2nd string. Go, just listen to the pitch and then bend up and match it. And work on trying to get that, even look at a tuner when you're doing it, and look at the pitch if you can't hear it yet, but you'll be able to hear it. And it's this hard thing to teach. And I said, once you get up the strength to hold it up there, hold it, and then work on dropping it in pitch a little bit and getting back there, and back, like working on, getting the vibrato going while he's bending up the pitch, right? And that always invariably turns into for the first couple of weeks, where it's just kind of falling, and then people start to get the strength. They start to get the strength, and he was working on it. And one day he came in and he just did it. He bent up there and he vibratoed, and it was perfectly. And I was like, dude, you sound like you've been playing all of a sudden for 5 years longer than last week when you were in here. I don't know what happened, but it just clicked, and now you've got it. And it's a strange thing. There's no substitute, I guess, for just listening and trying to emulate or something,
Well, also, I mean, there's a technical aspect to it that's physical. So, yep. I mean, everybody has something, a way that feels more comfortable and honestly natural to them. So you're going to gravitate towards that, what feels natural and is comfortable to repeat, because, that's what it's about in the end. If it kills me to play this, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do something else. Yeah.
Sure. I remember touring with Tony McAlpine, who's like he's a virtuoso on piano as well. And he moved from piano to guitar. And he was showing me some, he's playing like 8-string or 7-string or something. He's showing me the stuff that he does, and I'm like, is that difficult for you at all? Like what you're doing right now? Because it was so crazy what he's doing. He goes, no, he goes, not really. Why would I want to get up here and do something that's difficult for me to do? Obviously he put the time in, but I just was so blown away with like, oh, it's like he's not really stressed, like with what he's doing. He's got it under his fingers. And that's how do you feel when you get on stage about taking risks? Like, do you feel like you're ever playing at 100% of your capacity on stage, or do you find that you're just doing you're in the zone? I mean, I guess it probably varies on different nights depending on your comfort level, right? Yeah, the zone you are.
Yeah, it varies. And like most of us, I come off stage and most nights I think, that was all right. I don't ever think, oh, that was amazing, or, there's that feeling though, when you've been on the road and you pass like 3-4 nights in a row of playing, and then you get into this groove where you can do no wrong. And that's literally what I live for. Yeah. That week in the middle of a tour, when I can't possibly play a wrong note, and I can't possibly, like, it just, like you said about Landau, that connection is happening so fast between my brain and my fingers. Yeah. Where if I'm improvising and I think about the theme from fucking Woody Woodpecker, that it comes out, you know what I mean? Or whatever. It just happens. I live for that. Like when that connection becomes so strong, and we all want that all the time, but you only get that, nobody gets that all the time.
That's a great feeling, isn't it? Like 2 weeks into a tour or something, or sometimes it's like 2-3 weeks for me, where, especially like if you're learning someone else's music, doing a sideman gig, for me, it's like, and you've got a set, it's like you're learning the set and getting used to what song comes next. Oh yeah. And then you're changing guitars and all that. There's a time in a tour where you hit your stride, where the playing clicks, what is coming next. Your pedal moves, like,
oh yeah,
here, whatever, I'm good, and you get off stage, you go, tonight we played music. We just played music. We didn't think. That's a great feeling.
Dude, well, it's all about comfort. When you are able to relax and not be thinking about, like you said, I need to get to the side of the stage to switch guitars quick between this song, and I need to hit this button at this time, and what's the bridge on this song? I've only been in this band for a week, and there's 38 songs, and some of them run together. It's like, when that goes away and you're doing nothing but playing music, it's like a fog is lifted, and that, for me, a lot of that is not even like the things you're talking about. For me, a lot of the barriers are like logistically related because I'm the one running the business on my end. So it's
Yeah.
like sometimes I'm driving and sometimes I'm calling the hotel for the next day, and I'm the one setting up the musicians. A lot of times they're local musicians. I'm flying in and I'm getting backline and I'm sending charts to people to make sure they know their stuff. So of course, when I get on stage, I can't just play because I'm queuing a band I've never played with, and I'm thinking about my flight that's at 6 a.m. the next morning and this thing that I have to accomplish.
Yeah,
And
man.
it's like, dude, when that stuff goes away, when you can play with the same guys, when you're on a roll, when you're just playing, that's when the magic stuff comes out.
Amazing. Yeah, you got a lot on your mind as a completely different thing doing your own tour compared to, doing a sideman thing, which I always compare to, being sort of like you're 12 and you're out on vacation with your parents. Somebody tells you where to go, when, and we're going to do this now. You just kind of got to show up.
Yeah, you just show. I mean, dude, and I've done that too, and I really enjoy that aspect of it sometimes. The just get on the bus, wake up, go in, do sound check.
Yeah.
Someone hands me my guitar, like that's a great feeling too, to
Yeah.
just be a musician and not think about anything else. Like that's
Yeah.
really nice too. Yeah.
Sam Dixon was up there in the top chat, and he said, love both your playing content. Thanks, Sam. He says, Derek Trucks is my biggest guitar hero. Derek's amazing. And he says, wanted to hear your thoughts. I mean, he blows me away he's on some other planet, but what do you think?
Well, Derek and I almost, didn't grow up together, but kind of.
Really?
I've known Derek since I was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
We're both from Florida. Derek's from Jacksonville. I'm from Fort Lauderdale. And not that Derek, I started playing guitar at 6, but Derek got out on the scene when he was 11.
Mm-hmm.
And he got on like local news in Florida, and I saw, and my parents actually made me see it. They saw it and showed it to me. And it was him playing, a little news story about him playing with adults, being related to the Allman Brothers and playing slide. And I was like, wow, you mean it's acceptable for a kid to go play with adults? And then he was coming down from Jacksonville to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents said, do you want to go? And I said, yeah, let's go. So we went to this club and watched him play, and I met him on the break, and he was so just like me. He was shy and same age, and it was like a big push, and what, I could do this. And it was very shortly after that I started going to blues jams, and then ended up joining a band and playing gigs. And then it became, that we would play together all the time on bills around Florida once I started working the way he was. And there was a club in Fort Lauderdale where he would come from Jacksonville once a month to play this club called Cheers that had 2 stages. And me and my band played there every Friday. So he would come down once a month, and I'd be on the one stage, he'd be on the other, and we would each play 4 sets until 4 in the morning. We're 12 and 13 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, so I have literally hundreds of hours of Derek and myself on video playing guitar from when we were kids.
That's incredible.
Tons of it. And so we keep in touch. I see him every time he comes here. Yeah. And I think the thing that we both freak out the most about is we're exactly the same age, is, that we both took totally different paths, but yet here we are, at 40 years old, and neither one of us have ever done anything else but this. And it's like, it worked out, to some degree. Yeah.
That's an amazing answer to that question. I mean, I had no idea. I mean, you couldn't have hoped for more than that, because there's a real connection there. Not only that, he was the one, it sounds like, as a peer, that maybe really made you think differently and inspired you. Like, I can do this right now. Right.
Well, and even before him, quite honestly, Joe, and I've told Joe this, so I didn't know Joe as a kid, but Joe is a couple years older than Derek and I, and he was on a national news program, Dateline, with Jane Pauley, or 2020, one of the two. And they had a story about this kid playing with B.B. King, 11 years old, and, smoking Joe Bonamassa. And, but it was the same. It was like, wait a minute, I could play blues like that. Like, I should be playing with adults. And then I saw Derek. It was like, yeah, it's not like out of the question. You could do this, Yeah.
That's amazing. And getting inspired by, it's one of the things that I always say about seeing some incredible. For example, like, Laurie Basilio or Yvette Young, who I had on my show, these amazing female guitar players. And as girls, they're maybe like, 8, 10, 12, 15 years old or something, to see another girl playing on that level, it's going to inspire you in a way that maybe, an older guy just couldn't, where you're like, wait a minute, I can do that on that, so seeing like another kid play, seeing somebody that's like, they're like me, I can, you know what I mean? That it's
Yep.
like, and I think that that's a beautiful thing, for when somebody connects to, I had a kid like that was a big inspiration to me. He kind of kicked my ass, really, when his name is Jim Law. And when I was growing up, I was decent at guitar, like at 12, 13 years old. But then I saw Jim play, and he was about a year older than me, maybe, or something. And he was on another level. I mean, he was pulling off like, he sounded like Van Halen and Steve Vai,
Right.
or something. It was amazing. And so he really kicked my butt. So sometimes seeing a peer that's like, that you can really connect with is, I think, so important.
Absolutely.
Couple questions here. Somebody's asking, actually, it's a studio question. Modern Vintage was up there in the top chat, and he said, Josh, I see TC45s. Is that your studio monitors, I think?
Oh, my ATC 45s, yeah.
ATC 45s. He says, do you think they're the best for guitars? I see a lot of guitarists and blues rock producers using them.
Well, ATC mid-range is totally magic, and guitar lives in the mid-range. But man, ATC's by far, this was the most thought over purchase in my entire studio. I saved for 2 years to buy those speakers because I auditioned 11 pairs of speakers in this room. Thank you, Vintage King, for allowing me to keep borrowing speakers and listen to things and kind of find what I liked in my room. And between those and the NS10s, I can cover everything. The ATCs are incredibly amazing at being accurate, but also fun to listen to, and they're loud. They're fun for people on the couch in the back of the room, but I can mix on them, I can track on them, and be 100% certain what I'm doing translates. And then when it's time for vocals or last checks, bass frequency checks, I go to the NS10s and turn way down, and then I can check, what's it sound like on consumer speakers? Because that's the reason everybody uses NS10s, because they sound like the real world, like what everybody else listens to. Kind of junk, actually. And between those two, that covers all the bases. So, yes, I know they're expensive, but they've been a godsend to me here in the studio. And just sitting here like this, tracking guitar by myself, it's a joy, because I know now when I put a mic here on the amp, that's what I'm hearing. Like it just translates incredibly well to me. But I mean, it depends on the size of the room, which model you get. If you had a smaller room, I would get the 25s. Yeah.
How expensive are they? Are they like 10
grand? 10 grand for a pair? Yeah.
Yeah, that's like. And so, can you get a smaller set of ATCs that are?
Oh yeah, they have the 25s, which are like 5 grand or 6 grand, something like that. And now they have passive ones that actually sound nice, but you need a great amp.
Yeah.
But man, they're really great. I had heard them at other studios and always loved them. But when I actually brought them into this room, the second I turned them on, I had already listened to 3 other like really well-known expensive speaker brands in here. And the second these went up on the stands and I listened to music I'm really familiar with, it was like, oh, that's it. These are the ones for me and for this room. They were the right ones.
Wow. Well, you're making me think. It's interesting.
Yeah, they're really great.
Yes, a new pair. I think my near fields are getting tired. So,
dude, check out the 25s, man.
Yeah, are they kind of like the same size as your NS10s or something, or like
they're a little bit bigger than NS10s, but yeah, around that size, basically. Yeah,
that's kind of what I need, is like a small. My room's not as big as yours, so I find it is really interesting, like the size of the room, and being able to hear properly is like one of the most important things. If you're putting a studio together, it doesn't matter what mics or mic pre's or anything. If you sit in your zone and you can't hear, it all goes out the door.
Yeah. I was lucky with the design of this room. I had a family friend named Rick Ruggieri, who has designed many legendary studios here in LA. He's an engineer, but also a studio designer. And so he helped me draw the plans for the studio. And not only that, once I built them to his specs, he helped me tune the rooms. And so this control room sounds really great. It's like very, very flat, but not dead, not clinical, but but just right. Like it just sounded and it was all about the dimensions. Quite honestly, he insisted on these dimensions to the room, and so yeah.
My friend Lauren here is in the chat, and he was asking about how you're live streaming and getting a good guitar sound. If you can explain that setup, I would just sort of add to that and ask, like, just can you tell us a little bit more about your studio? I notice you've got a analog 24 track, and you got a real console and stuff. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit more about the room. But maybe can you start with your live stream setup you're using right now?
Yeah. So right now you're hearing Pro Tools. So this is going into Pro Tools, the guitar. I have my Morgan JS12, which is my signature little amp, like a Princeton Reverb. It's mic'd up out in the booth. Here, I'll see if I can show it.
Okay. Because you got a camera.
To the right of the drums, I don't know how much you're seeing, is like the wall with all the pictures on it. That's a booth. Can you guys see that in this picture?
Kind of. I know where it is because I've been there, but it's a little tough.
So there's an ISO booth in the control room. My amp's in there. And it's mic'd up with a vintage Unidyne, Shure Unidyne 3, which is a predecessor to a 57. And they're my favorite mics. Because every rock and roll record we like from the 60s and 70s, that mic was on the amp. You know what I mean? Like everyone.
Right.
And I just love them. I just go on eBay whenever there's one and try to snag some. They're not expensive, but so and I put it directly in the center of the cone. Because for me, it's important to I like the tone that comes out of my amp. So it's important for me to have, just like with all my gear, to have maximum information. I'd rather take it away than not have it there. You know what I mean? And it gives me dynamics. So that's in the middle. And then I have a Mesanovich ribbon mic, which is like a Royer style, but with a little more top end. I kind of like it actually better than my Royer. Mm-hmm. And that's my main guitar thing. I actually have a room mic out in the live room too. And I think you may be hearing a little of it. It's a stereo ribbon Mesanovich that it lives as like my room mic for certain things out there in the live room. So then all that's coming into my desk. So all the guitars are on Trident preamps for my Trident console, which is a vintage Series 70. No EQs on or anything. I'm just trying to get a good sound by mic placement and volume. That's it. If you can do that, you're in good shape. Like you should be able to get your tone that way without any EQ. Otherwise, change your amp, change your mic placement, whatever.
So come right into the Trident, and I bet you got that Trident maybe from Vintage King too, eh? Maybe.
No, I actually got this Trident from my friend Alan Hertz. It's a vintage one, and he changes consoles like underwear. He buys vintage consoles and then buys a new one. So the new flavor of the month came, and he wanted to get rid of this one, and I was like, dude, that's the perfect size, and I love Trident for guitar and drums. I was like, I think that's what I want for my room. Let me do it. And it's been a godsend. Everything I track here, all drums and guitar, most of the time are on the Trident. And it sounds amazing. So then from the Trident, I'm just going straight into Pro Tools, into the 192 converters right here behind me. And then Pro Tools sound is coming out. I've got a 2 mix basically of Pro Tools going into my video switcher, which then syncs up with all the cameras. And then the video switcher goes into the computer via Thunderbolt like any other capture card or camera.
Great. That's awesome. Thanks, man.
It took a minute to figure out how to do the sync and all that stuff with the video, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you got it all sussed, and it's all. Were you able to do most of that on your own, or did you have to get anybody over there to help?
No, it was almost all on my own, and a lot of research. Yeah. But it's cool. I like doing that stuff.
Tor says he's asking he got a chance to watch your interview with Blues last night. I got to watch that too. I really want to see it. I know Blues. I love Blues. He lives not far from here, and he's a great guy. He says, do you have plans to do more interviews, and if so, with who? I bet you do, right?
I've already got 8 in the can. I've asked Pete. I'm sure Pete will get on one. Yes, that's one thing that I have a lot of friends, and no one said no to me yet. So yes, one will come out every week is my plan. And like I said, so there'll be an interview, and basically the format is loose conversation. Then I have 10 questions that I'm asking everybody the same. So if you watch the Blues one, you saw the 10 questions. And then
prepare for mine.
what?
I can prepare for mine. I can watch
Exactly. And then there's a bonus video for members that's called Turn 2, where I asked the guests, so last night it was Blues, hey Blues, if someone stopped you on the street and said, play me a lick that sounds like Blues Saraceno, you had to explain yourself in a lick, play it. And so everybody's done that. Like, hey, this is a very me thing. And then they teach it a little bit. And then they all ask me back a question. Could be anything. Hey, show me that thing you play or whatever. So that way mine's different every week. But that's it. It's 2 licks, like 2 little lessons. And that's a members only video. But that'll be for everyone. So here's who's coming up. I got Oz Noy, Eric Walls, the great Adam Rogers from New York, Joshua Gooch. I think Michael Landau. He said he would do it. That would be great. I've got, who else have I got coming up? Scott Henderson, Val McCallum, Mark Goldenberg. Dude, I have so many guys lined up over the next. I'm doing like 3-4 a day over the next 10 days.
Oh my God. You work too hard.
Well, I'm home, and it's like I said, the rest of this year, this is where I'm going to try to put all my effort. But also part of it is to stockpile videos so that if things do get back to normal and I'm on the road, I still have stuff that I can release once a week or something. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. It's a good time to do the work, definitely, and be motivated. It's great because you found something else you're doing because you said, well, you don't feel like writing right now and stuff, so you're doing other stuff, creative.
It was fun to talk. Blues is just a really good friend, and he's a very funny guy. So the interview was funny. But dude, Blues, if people ask me who's an influence on you that you wouldn't expect, Blues was a big influence on me as a kid because I'm coming up in shredder times, and the Guitar for the Practicing and Shrapnel Records and all that were everywhere. And so I'm a blues guy, but I was also into whatever was in the magazine. And I couldn't get into, not that I didn't like Racer X or Cacophony and all the stuff that were on those labels, but it wasn't my thing. And blues was the first of those guys that I could put it on and be like, I get this. Like, I really like this. It's got Van Halen in there, but it's got actual blues in it. And his name is Blues. And his tone is great. And then I found out he was from Connecticut, really close to where I was born in Connecticut before I moved to Florida. And it was just kind of like, oh, I like this guy. So I had a poster of him on my wall. I tell him this all the time. And man, if you've never heard the Plaid record, it'll blow you away. Go listen to that album.
He was like 17 when he made that, right? I think.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I totally agree. The tone. I mean, obviously, his dad was a big help because his dad's like a real genius with amps and pedals and stuff too.
Yep.
Right? And his sound. He had this warmth to his sound, and he played technical, but the groove in his playing, even when he was really young, like the rhythmic pulse going throughout all of his lead playing, and it was never too fast or like too. Nope. It wasn't about the fast. It was about like it was really tasty and funny. Like it was funny and fun. He played stuff. They're like a great personality in his playing, and I always loved that. I agree. I mean, I didn't connect with. There was a lot of stuff that was shreddy that I didn't connect with, and blues was like I enjoy listening to this. It's actually, from day one. Just looking through the chat here, see if there's any other good questions and stuff here. I'll probably split about one today, guys, because Joe's doing his.
You need to go buy a ticket for Joe's show.
Yeah, I want to check it out. Joe's at the Ryman. So it's a live stream from the Ryman, right? Basically,
it's a live stream from the Ryman. Yeah.
Does he have all the faces of the people in the seats? I think
he's got. Anybody like who bought VIP tickets early on when they put the tickets for sale, they made cardboard cutouts of them and put them in the pews at the Ryman.
That's what you can actually be there. That's fantastic in a photograph.
Yep.
Nick's up there in the top chat, and he says, get Derek on for an interview. That'd be cool. I'd love to see Derek Drex on your.
No, I already asked him, and I know he doesn't do that type of stuff a lot. Yeah. He said he's off the grid for a month with the family, because you're not working. But he said he would do it. He said, give him a month and get back to me. So we'll see. We'll see if he'll do it.
And Bobby Valdez is up there too. He says, you've said to learn chromatics, diminished lines, and turnarounds to facilitate soloing. How do modes and scales fit in with blues, if at all?
Well, scales for me, I relate all modes and scales to chords. So for me, they're part of the category of things that I play over a chord. That's normally what I'm thinking. So like, you know, if it's a major 7 chord, let me turn that off. If it's a major 7 chord, then yeah, I'm thinking of A, but I may be thinking of A major. I may think of A Lydian. I may think of this sound, which is a B over A chord, a 2/1, which is something I got from John Scofield. You know, so for me, I think of modes that way. Like I think of Lydian over this chord, you know, or over dominant chords, I think of different modes, or minor chords, I think of different modes. I try to relate them all just to chords, but that way I can file them away into, you know, things I play over each chord. Because again, I'm really trying to free my mind up to thinking only about what's next, where am I headed, and not what I'm doing right at the moment over the chord.
When you say you think of Lydian when you play the major, I was just thinking, like, is that because of the chord that's going to follow, or is that because, oh, I like the sound of the sharp 4 over the?
It's the sound of the sharp 4 over the major 7 chord. You know, because when I was a kid, I got John Scofield's video on improvisation, and he did a really cool thing where he played every mode in C, but he played them all in C. He didn't move. He started from C on all of them. So he played, you know, the first one over C major 7, and the second over C minor 7, and the third one over C minor 7, and then Lydian over C, you know, C major 7. And he kept, and that way was the first time I actually heard the flavor of those modes, as opposed to when you just move up and down in C and then play, you know, D Lydian over C. It's still just C major scale. It's all the same, you know. Right. So that helped me tie each one to, like, okay, this is either minor or major, you know, and that's the way I still think about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because you're thinking so chord tones. I mean, a lot, I think, because you're thinking about approaching with the, so it sounds like, and the scales. It's almost like, it's interesting. It's like okay, Lydian. It's like you play the major 7 chord, you see all the chord tones. It's like, okay, I want that sharp 4 flavor. Beyond that, it's almost like you can just approach it chromatically and know where those chords are, right?
But again, we all have all our little things that we check off that we can play on certain chords. So for me, when I play a major 7 chord like that, right? Well, that means I'm going to play A major. I'm going to play A Lydian. Things like that. I'm going to play that 2/1, but I'm also going to play, you know, relative. You know, and but then I'm also going to play the 4 minor. You know, so that A major 7, I'll play flat 4 as well. I'm sorry, the 3. And then I'll play the 6, you know, again, you know. So that's what I'm thinking. I'll play the 3, I'll play the 6, and I'll play, you know, Lydian, I'll play major scale, I'll play 2/1. Those are the things I think of. I have little things like that that relate to every chord for me, kind of.
Deep. It's deep. It's deeper than most of us rock guys can muster.
I don't know about that, but
no, it's true. I mean, I think as a rock player, you know, part of the thing is that you grow up like in this pattern-based world, or doing things that are so, you're not really thinking about music is part of the dilemma. And if you could bridge that gap and think more about music, like more about everything you just thought about. I assume when you say you think about that as you're playing over it.
I don't think about it. But it is there. It just comes out. You're right. It's like,
but there's a part of your brain that's thinking about it, but it's almost like it's unconscious, but you know what you're doing which is incredible.
Well, I mean, but it's because I put in the work, but it's mostly so that I can, man, my whole goal is to play blues all the time and temper all those other things until I hear them so much that I have to play it right then. So I just want to be playing. Like, I only want to play that because I heard it desperately right there. It had to happen right there. I heard that lick. It was like a lightning rod, and it said, "Play me now." And it's like I'm not I don't want to sound like I'm holding it back purposely, but it is like I'm trying to edit out the superfluous ones and play what I really feel, because the blues is what I want to be playing all the time. But that other stuff, if I let it, it'll help me tell my story, which is what we're trying to do.
Right. Right. And when you played that diminished lick, it's great because I took that away from what we were talking about earlier. It's like, oh, and I'm hearing it now. So this really was a guitar lesson for me too. And it's terrific. My niece heard us saying Lydian is based off the 4-chord. Not really. Lydian is just like a mode. Okay, yeah, based off the 4-chord, but in relation to what. Is there a simple way you can explain modes to folks? Like
So the modes relate to each degree of a major scale. So Lydian, as you just said, is the 4th degree of the major scale. So it does relate to the 4-chord. But if we played that same C, right, and then I played F Lydian, it's a C scale. It's the same as it's the same thing. But if I play C Lydian over the C, and highlight those notes, then you hear the flavor of the Lydian scale, which is that sharp 4, flat 5 sound. So it helped me to relate each of the degrees of the modes to the chords that are the degrees. And that just means the flavor of that chord: minor, major, dominant, or diminished. And so I related each one to a chord tone, to one of those families: minor, major, dominant, diminished. And then that freed me up to not be thinking of them scale wise. Now, of course, you could think of them like, scale wise like that. So, I can move from C to D minor over C. And so when I'm playing in C, I can certainly play D minor. And then, but it's really, you're just playing C there all the time. You have to realize you're playing C major at all times when you think that way. So it helped me to tie each mode to a chord type.
I tell folks that it's like, okay, C major, D Dorian, the second mode of C major. But if you're calling it D Dorian, I always say that's because D feels like home. If you're playing a certain sequence of chords and D Dorian is what you're going to play on top of it, it's because that sounds like, it's like we were talking about earlier, where that sounds like the one or whatever, right? Like you want to return to that, like if you're here and you're like, well, I'm playing C to D, but D feels like home, right? So I always say that it's like that's, and then you're going to play D Dorian on top of that. And C, I don't know how else to describe it to people other than it's the home base chord. And then if you're playing the chords of a major scale and that's all you're playing, but that feels like where you want to come home to, So that's my way that I would teach modes. Let's see here. Yes, Arthur says I always go to that home note scale. My niece hurts says C major, A minor is all I play. That's okay. That's all right. That's all right.
But dude, you could make a living doing that. What's wrong with that? It's the best.
There, see, you just wrote a new tune.
Yeah.
You said you haven't been writing. You just did it. Well, what else we got here? Michael says you let the natural musical sound, phrase, melody in your head come out on the instrument. Well, that's all this. That's the thing, is that theoretically, you're just figuring out how to talk about and explain and make sense of the things that your head and your heart want to play, right? I mean, I think that but having said that, it's almost like the theory can influence your creativity because let's just take, for example, your point about you can approach any chord with the diminished. Had you not thought about it that way, the theory is somehow influencing the sound, right? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But I mean, it's not just theory. We're all trying to, get the most direct and honest approach to whatever, conveying how we feel and the story we want to tell, the narrative we're trying to get across. And so theory, tone knowledge, influence, time, rhythm, all those things come together. The more that you can have knowledge, I don't know how more knowledge about anything, be it theory or tone or whatever, any of these subjects can be a negative when trying to tell your story, even if that means you just want to play blues. The more that you have available to draw from your toolbox, the better you're going to be able to put the shit together or tell the story. It's like,
right. More sophisticated. You can tell a more sophisticated story if you've got these tools. It is really interesting. I mean, I find it still endlessly fascinating how a major chord sounds happy and a minor chord sounds sad. How can something sound sad, right? You know,
well, it's the connotation that it's been ingrained in us through music, through songs. It doesn't sound sad. It sounds sad because they write sad songs with that chord and with sad melodies and all those things. You know what I mean? If they were constantly resolving it, we wouldn't think about it at all.
But I think core DNA level, there's something that sounds sad about like I think it's amazing to me. That's one of the things amazing about music. I think a seventh chord sounds kind of silly. It's got a kind of a goofy, kind of fun sound, like a bit like it's a little bit slap happy sounding or something. And then minor, you know, and so when I think about the way that you're talking about approaching with the diminished, that just sounds and feels cool. Like, can you show us one more time? Like if you're moving and you're approaching a one chord, playing a diminished lick, and then
here's like a cool way. Like I'll even change up what diminished chord I'm doing, because so there's a difference between a diminished chord being an actual chord in the song, where that means it's a chord that has to be played in the song, and being a passing chord or a bridge. So like a lot of times going from the 4 back to the 1, you'll hear Freddie Green or Ray Charles or the Beatles play stuff like this. Right? So that's going from D to E flat diminished, but I want to play A flat diminished to lead me to A, because that also works, because that D flat diminished, they're making it a chord in the song. So what I'll do is play something like, and I switched. I went, you know, so I used one as a chord in the song, and then I used one as a launching pad to lead me to the next chord. But it's, you know, and I mix and match this stuff kind of ad nauseum. You know, the next time I'll play diminish halfway through, and then I'll play a 2-5, you know, or I'll play a 2-5 and I'll mix it with chromatic. So instead of going from B minor to E to get to A, I'll play B minor to B flat to A to lead me there. And that's still a 2-5-1, but I'm thinking of it chromatically. But the reason it's still a 2-5-1 is because B flat is a tritone substitution for E, which is the 5. So basically I'm going, it's the same as going, you know, but I'm mixing, again, it's those three things. I'll mix and match them all to kind of create my bridges.
Did you figure that out on your own, or is that something like the tritone substitution thing? Did you go, oh, it's this sound, or was it?
I didn't know it was the tritone substitution when I learned that. I saw Danny Gatton play this lick, and he said, I stole this from Les Paul. It's 2-5-1. And he goes like this. And I couldn't figure out why it was a 2-5-1. To me, it was like he's just going, right, from B flat. But then I realized as I got older and I knew what a tritone was, that B flat was the tritone of E, you know? So it was like, oh, wait a minute, this is still a 2-5 that's happening here. Yeah.
Wow. I need to take lessons from you. I'm going to subscribe. I'm definitely going to subscribe. We've got 550 people online. It's like I said I was going to go, but we got more people now than we've had, you know. So it's like, anybody else got any questions for Josh? Please ask away, because pretty soon we're going to split and we're going to go check out Joe at the
we're going to check out Joe, and my son wants me to take him to the comic book store.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a couple more things, and then we'll get out of here.
I lied. I want to go to the comic book store, and my son also likes going. I lied. I just blamed him for that.
I love that. That's great. Let's see here. Anybody else? Well, I don't know. Let's see. How much? Oh, okay. Arvin says, how much of the stuff you improvise is actually new? I guess like off the top of your head is what he's saying, or is it licks that you?
No. Oh, okay. That's a good question. So we all have our stuff that we like, right? So for me, the key is to be improvising everything until some of those things come into your head, and it's like, oh, this one that you play, this fits here, and then you do. It's like an index. You bring it out because it fits in the story that you're already telling. But I never know what's going to happen. So for me, it's a good exercise to take a solo and like make the, I'll take a solo and whatever the first lick that comes out, I work on sharpening these improvisational tools. So it's like, okay, the first lick's going to come out. Well, now that's the theme of the solo. So every lick has to correspond or relate to that in some way. So I'll go. And the next thing you know, when you think that way, it just lays itself out for you. So all of that is completely improv. I never played that phrase like that ever probably in my entire life. But it comes from sharpening that, I'm constantly refining and sharpening the ability to allow that to happen by working on little things like that. Telling myself it's, okay, trade with yourself. So maybe I'll make everything an answer, even though it already is, but I'll exaggerate it. So if I start a solo, I'm going to answer that. And I'll answer that. And answer that. And so every lick is like I'm trading with myself. I practice these things because it helps me create solos that are memorable, tell a story, and are conversational, because those are the things that like the non-us's in the audience, the non-guitar players relate to when they hear a solo like that. They immediately start bobbing their head, tapping their feet, snapping their fingers. They can relate to a solo that comes at you in that manner.
And it's conversational, like you say. I use the phrase digestible phrases, where you've got the break in between. You say something, take a breath, and you say something, right? Yeah. If it's just coming at me too, then I lose it after,
Dude, I used to force myself to take a breath at the start of a solo, especially if I was taking it as a handoff from another soloist. Like if a soloist,
right?
Yeah, if a soloist played his whole solo and then it's your turn, don't come in on the one. Let a bar go by. Take a breath. And you know what? If you just take that approach in general, if I go, next thing I know, a theme enters my head automatically, that starts the solo. So if I just let the first 4 bars go by, I'm hearing, and then I'm in. And again, then it just lays itself out. It takes care of itself. Yeah. So, man, sometimes the breath is the best thing you can do.
Yeah. I learned that one. I've talked about it before, but I remember being at MI and playing with a really terrific guitar player named Richard Smith. And he was a USC instructor as well. But anyway, I was sitting there jamming with him just back and forth, and we would get together and play. It was those open counseling things they do at MI sometimes.
Yeah.
Sitting there playing. And the very first time I did that, like we're trading, I'm playing rhythm, he's playing, it goes to me. Okay. And I did that. I waited till, I didn't come in till beat 3 or something. I waited for a couple, and he goes, wait, stop. That's great. You didn't come in right on the 1, and he's like, you thought about it and then you said what you wanted to say. And I was like, oh, it was one of those moments I always remember from MI, where it's like, that was one of those things I took away that I really learned in that moment.
Well, dude, we've all been there where we've seen the guy, here comes this solo, it's your turn. And it just goes. It's like you're chomping at the bit, you're going to explode, but you're not telling a story because you just let it just explode out, and it can never be like, cohesive when you do it that way.
Yeah. Oh, it's good stuff. Good stuff. It's not what you play, it's how you play it. Said
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, Albert King did it with 3 notes, and I'd rather listen to him than anybody else in the whole world. So
right. Yeah. I mean, if you think about the great singers, that's how they sing, and that's all you're doing is singing on the guitar, So it's approach it more like you're saying something. Approach it like you're singing. That's always a good, the closer you can get to what you would just do if you, once again, like when we were talking about, Mike earlier and stuff, and how I was saying, like, if you didn't have the instrument in your hands, but you had to say something, if it's just coming from here and it was a direct connection, the guitar is just the vehicle. So
so practice singing. I do that too. But singing solos. I'll trade with myself with singing. I'll go and then I'll go back and forth with my voice and my guitar, because I'll sing something differently. And a lot of times what comes out of me singing is rhythmically much different than what I'll play. Like I'll go and I would never play that. I would never play that phrase that I just sung. Never. I don't think I've ever probably played something that phrased that way rhythmically 100% like that. And it just came from that, from singing it,
Yeah. That's interesting. Getting different ideas rhythmically. I loved your point about funk guitar earlier, and getting inspiration for your solos from funk rhythm, and how you can apply that to lead. I remember taking a lesson with Paul Gilbert once, and he does that with drum solos, he said, or drum fills. So in the air tonight, dun 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 bum bum. Okay, now play that on the guitar. And it's a great way to bust yourself out of typical things that you would fall into.
I do. When I heard shit, I don't remember. Whatever. Let me stand here next to your fire, right? And Mitch Mitchell plays boom, blap, blap, boom, boom, blap, 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 blap. I remember thinking, how do I get that into my solo? And it was like, I remember that as a kid. Like, that's really cool, the rhythmic side of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or what about in the reverse, you've got Bonham, at the beginning of rock and roll playing Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
How many people screw that up when they play it live, right?
Yeah, all the time.
Once it's just Chuck, it's like, I can hear it now.
Oh, dude, and Little Richard too. Little Richard, listen to "Rip It Up." It's 100% straight from Earl Palmer on that tune. He's playing literally. It's so close. Yeah.
Which one's this one? The
Little Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rip It Up.
Rip It. Okay, I got to check that out later.
No, wait, is it Rip It Up? It's Rip It Up. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
We'll confer on that.
I may be having a brain fart, and I apologize, but there's a Little Richard song that literally starts just like rock and roll, and it's Earl Palmer on drums, and it's 100%.
I got to check. Yeah. TL Pedals Canada is asking about the Chula pedal. Do you use your tone control a lot, or prefer the bright tone?
So the Chula has no knob on the main side that you're hearing me use. So I use my tone sometimes on my guitar, but the bridge pickup in this guitar is really special. So like here's nothing. If I turn on the Chula, like that's bridge pickup, right? But if I lay out, if I roll my volume down, I can live whole gigs on my bridge pickup if I want, because it's just really dynamic with that pedal and this pickup, So, but I don't mind the treble. I'm not scared of, I don't want to take anybody's head off, but I embrace the top end because, again, it's a part of my philosophy with minimizing compression and having maximum dynamics. I want everybody to hear everything I'm doing. First off, I just want them to hear all the notes, but second, I want them to hear the nuance and the dynamics. So when I lighten up my attack, when I roll my volume down, I want that to be heard. So all my gear kind of has to fit into that box for me.
I see. Well, we should probably go and let you get to the comic book shop. But this was great. It's so much
fun. Dude, thanks for having me. And you got to come. You got to do one with me. We recorded it. It's not live, so yeah, we got to just do a Zoom.
Oh, I'd love to, man. We got to do it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm honored that you would have me with the great list of folks that you mentioned going to be on. Go down, folks, to the video description below and click on the link and subscribe to Josh's channel and go check out because he's got members good stuff as well as free stuff on there, and you want to experience it all. So
yeah, dude, come be a ruler and join the top tier. Get in the Discord. We're having a lot of fun in there. People are posting questions and answer videos and gear and music suggestions, and it's cool. We're already like building a little community, like you said. It's kind of inspiring.
Yeah, man, it is fun, and that's out of all this madness the last 6-7 months, there's been some really good things come of it, and now you're part of that for sure. So I appreciate that you've taken this opportunity to develop this. It's great.
Thanks. Well, dude, thanks for asking me to be on here, man. I appreciate it. You're always so supportive, man.
Oh man, well, it's my pleasure. I mean, I've learned a ton today. So, all right. Well, let's end the broadcast here. Everybody, go check out Joe Bonamassa at the Ryman if you can virtually get in, and check it out. And I'll see you next week. Be back for more Sunday Live next week. Same place, same time. All right. Thanks again, man.
Yeah, ruling.